10 spine-chilling encounters with the sinister at haunted Appalachian Ranger Stations revealed. The tales might be old, but the screams echo through the trees. They say if you venture too deep into the Appalachian woods, you risk encountering the lost souls of rangers, swallowed by the shadows. But who warns the unwary when the darkness itself seems to be beckoning? Sarah, a struggling single mother, thought a summer job at the ranger station could pull her out of an unending spiral of debt. Little did she know, this summer would be a dance with the sinister at every turn. As she stepped into the rustic cabin, the aroma of pine wrapped around her like a warning. The creaking floorboards whispered secrets directly into her bones. Night after night, she clocked in to face the wilderness alone, surrounded by dense forests that seemed to thrum with untold stories. On shift, the vibrant sounds of nature were comforting, until they weren't. Was that a growl? A voice? Every rustle of leaves was a phantom taunting her, pulling her deeper into a terror she barely understood. The locals had spun chilling tales of rangers who vanished, tales woven with betrayal and vengeance. Who were they, these people she worked alongside? Shadows seemed to dart between trees, and she often felt the weight of unseen eyes studying her every move. Oh, the irony of thinking she could escape her life only to plunge into a realm of fear. Then one night, everything escalated. The radio crackled to life with an eerie static, twisting her gut tighter than her mounting debt. It was a voice, a whisper calling her name. Familiar yet eerie, it sent a shiver down her spine. Panic poured over Sarah like ice water. She was supposed to protect Emily, who spent nights with the neighboring families while she worked. Was she putting her daughter in danger by accepting this job? The more she learned of the ranger who had vanished, betraying the trust of his community, the sharper her instincts became. She started feeling like the next target. With escalating dread, Sarah took Emily on a day trip into the very woods that had already begun to haunt her dreams. For a moment, laughter rang out, innocent, pure. But in a heartbeat, Emily vanished. One moment of distraction, and Sarah's world crumbled. Emily. Emily. Her heart raced. Panic clawed at her throat as silence enveloped her. Where was her daughter? Shadows twisted in the trees, and the oppressive silence clawed deeper into her skin. The forest, once a playground, morphed into a grotesque maze. She sprinted deeper into the woods. Memories of the rangers lost to darkness flashed before her eyes. Were they warning her or leading her to the edge of madness? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the fog wrapped around her like a predator, Sarah's instincts screamed danger. Who would she encounter? The lost ranger? Or something more sinister lurking, perhaps waiting for an opportunity? A chilling realization gripped her hard. The legends weren't just stories, they were warnings. Each twisted branch was a reminder that safety was a mirage in these haunted woods. What hunted them now could be very real, something lurking among those she tried to trust. Just then, she spotted a flicker of movement. Was it Emily? Or the specter of the woods? Dread filled her chest. Was her daughter lost forever to this world of shadows? The cries of a child echoed through the mist, twisting in her mind as her heart raced. Each breath brought horror closer. The woods were alive, and they hungered for more than just her fears. Desperate. She knew she couldn't turn back. The game had started, and the price of the stakes was a life. Was it too late to save Emily? The darkness thickened, wrapping around Sarah like a suffocating blanket. Her heart thumped against her chest as she sprinted deeper into the woods, but the cries faded into silence. Emily. She shouted again, the urgency in her voice piercing the stillness. There was no answer, just the silence of the trees whispering secrets she couldn't comprehend. A morbid curiosity gripped her. What if something had taken Emily? The stories swirled in her mind, tales of vengeful spirits and lost souls. Would the forest demand a price for its cruel whimsy? Deep inside, she felt the rising dread of being prey, her daughter a potential trophy for whatever lurked in the mist. As the dull thud of her heartbeat rang in her ears, Sarah stumbled upon a clearing. It felt wrong, a stillness that made her skin crawl. The air hung thick like it was holding its breath. Then, out of the corner of her eye, a figure darted behind a tree. Adrenaline surged. "Emily!" she cried, fear turning her voice hoarse. Had the forest itself conspired to erase her child? Desperation clawed at her mind, but she needed to think. Voices intertwined, a child's giggle rang out, cut short by something sinister. Her thoughts raced. Could the ranger's betrayal be echoed in his spirit, taking children in exchange for the secrets he had once tried to hide? "Stop!" she yelled, swinging around. "Show yourself." Nothing but silence answered. Then, a cold wind swept through the clearing, rustling the branches overhead. She shivered, a chill running straight down her spine. Was it just the breeze, or something else, something that sent a clear warning? Something moved again, this time it seemed to ripple through the fog. Sarah's instincts flared, another flicker of movement caught her eye. She couldn't breathe. Was fear turning her mind against her? Her heart hammered as she felt a presence looming close, the sensation prickling her skin. "Emily!" she called again, this time firmer, but a horrible thought clawed at her. What if what she called wasn't her daughter? What if the woods had twisted everything into its own reflection of anguish, and what stood behind those trees wasn't her child, but something far worse? The wind picked up, and suddenly a low growl rumbled from the shadows. It echoed through the grove, steady and deliberate, like the rhythmic beating of a drum. Sarah's stomach churned. She couldn't shake the feeling of being surrounded, of being hunted. Then, out of the dark, the beast stalked into the clearing, eyes glowing like embers in the night. Its form was indistinct, blending with the shadows, but its presence was undeniable, a predator cloaked in the familiar. Panic surged as she recognized the golden eyes of the ranger who had vanished, but twisted into something horrific. "Help me," came a voice, faint but eerily familiar, echoing off the trees. It wasn't Emily. Rather, it was the voice of the lost ranger, calling her, begging her. In that moment, the ground beneath her felt like it was pulling her down, a vortex of despair. She had to make a choice: flee or confront the horror manifested in this forest. As she stepped back, terror clawed at her throat. She couldn't lose Emily, but was she walking into a trap? The wind howled, drowning out her thoughts, and the figure of the ranger began to shift. Was it leading her toward her daughter or drawing her into eternal darkness? With a shiver, Sarah realized, the woods had claimed another victim. With each breath, she could feel the darkness smothering her will. "Emily!" The cry tore from her lips again, filled with raw desperation. But the stillness returned, chillingly void. Ahead of her loomed a path fading into deeper shadows. A choice awaited. Would she follow the hollow voice that drained her hope or unravel the mystery that had taken her child? Time was slipping away, and the shadows writhed, hungry for her decision. The shadows deepened, stretching and billowing like ghostly fingers, beckoning Sarah toward the unseen horrors that lay ahead. She could feel the weight of the forest pressing against her, a palpable force that seemed determined to crush her spirit. The ranger's twisted visage loomed just out of reach, flickering like a dying flame, and Sarah sensed an insatiable hunger behind its glowing eyes. "Help me," it pleaded again, but the voice now felt less like a cry for salvation and more like a sinister invitation. The air crackled with tension, sending prickles up her arms. She hesitated, pulse racing, faced with the terrifying possibility that the figure of the ranger had become a wraith, an echo of a life snuffed out, reeking of despair and hungering for souls. She thought of Emily, the girl's laughter ringing in her ears. But each giggle seemed to morph into a taunt, as if the forest itself was mocking her desperate search. "This way." The whisper, almost imperceptible, wafted toward her from the depths of the woods. It felt deliberate, seductive. Was this a promise of hope, or was it a snare? Sarah took a tentative step forward, trying to catch her breath, torn between dread and hope. The decision gnawed at her. One path led deeper into the darkness, promising a chance at finding her daughter. The other pulled her back toward the exit, away from the beckoning voice, but risked losing every trace of Emily. As she swayed between choices, the shadows flickered. The ranger's form oscillated in and out of clarity, as if the darkness was swallowing him whole. "Trust me, find her, don't fight," it urged. Each word carried a malevolent weight, but still, a small part of her yearned to believe. And in that moment, she spotted a flash of yellow in the underbrush. It was unmistakably familiar, Emily's jacket, the one she always wore when skipping stones by the lake. Hope surged like a fire lit in the cold. "Emily!" Sarah shouted, muscles taut, dread melting into determination. She lunged forward into the brush, ignoring the hollow voice that still promised her salvation, determined to fight through the looming dread. But as she trespassed deeper into the woods, the light began to fade. The air thickened around her, an oppressive force gripped her throat, making it hard to breathe. Each step felt like wading through mud, every whispering branch clawing at her skin. "Emily!" She shouted again, heart racing. Silence answered, suffocating her. The jacket was there, but behind it, the trees pulsed with a dark life, their roots clutching the earth like skeletal fingers. Sarah dropped to her knees, fumbling to reach it, but as she pulled the fabric toward her, it unraveled, revealing a blood-soaked doll hidden beneath. The familiar giggle twisted and eerie returned, echoing from the trees. It was followed by frenzied whispers that danced in the air, converging into a roiling storm of panic. "Run!" something deep within her screamed, a primal instinct. But just as she turned to flee, the growl from the shadows returned, closer, more feral. "You shouldn't have come here!" it thundered. Sarah felt the earth tremble beneath her, roots and branches all around ready to ensnare her. Time slipped through her fingers like sand, and panic needle-sharp clawed at her insides. Her heart thundered as she stood, adrenaline surging anew. Ahead, the path twisted ominously, swallowed by darkness. What lay in that labyrinth of trees? What awaited her if she turned her back on it all? A decision loomed, dread hung in the air. She needed to move, but every direction screamed danger. As her instincts kicked in, Sarah had to choose: follow the echoes of Emily's laughter or face the ravenous creature lurking close behind. What awaited her on the other side of fear? The growl reverberated in her bones, a sound primal and ancient. It cut through her thoughts like a knife, pressing her to act while still locking her in place. Instinct screamed to run, but what good was flight without knowing where she was going? Run, it seemed to echo in her mind, a terrifying chant from the depths of an unknown malevolence. She forced her legs to move, muscles tense and trembling, as if the ground itself sought to swallow her whole. The shadows danced around her, teetering on the edge of visibility, urging her onward deeper into the heart of the dark. As she took her first steps down the path, something cold wrapped around her ankles, a vine, slick and slithering, like the fingers of a corpse. It yanked at her, pulling her back toward the forest floor. Heart racing, she kicked wildly, feeling the pulse of her fear matching the frantic rhythm of her breath. "No!" she gasped, wrenching free. But in that fleeting moment of weakness, she heard the laughter again, distant yet so close, mocking her. It rose and fell, intertwining with the murmur of the breeze as if the woods themselves were teaching her a cruel lesson. "Emily!" she cried out again, desperation coating her voice. She stumbled deeper into the forest, the branches clawing at her clothes, snagging at her hair. The trees whispered secrets she couldn't grasp, their rustling leaves speaking of things she dared not comprehend. Her mind flickered, haunted by visions of what had been, Emily's beaming smile, splashed with sunlight at the lake, shaded by the very branches that loomed above her now. A sudden flash of light caught her eye, an eerie shimmer pulsed between the trees. Something flickered like a beacon through the obsidian darkness. Only a few feet ahead, a smooth stone altar jutted from the ground, crudely decorated with an array of animal bones and shredded cloth that resembled fragments of children's clothing. She froze, the sickly sweet smell of decay enveloping her, like an invitation or a warning. Foolishly curious, she edged closer, her breath hitching in her throat as she spotted more yellow fabric, torn bits of what looked hauntingly like Emily's dress. A shiver ran down her spine, the warning alarms blaring in her head. This was not a place of safety. It was a desecration. The laughter grew louder, now morphing into shrieks that echoed through the air, ricocheting off the bark of trees like a sadistic melody. Emily. Her voice broke as she lost herself in the cacophony. Could it really be her daughter behind it all, trapped in this nightmare, or was it merely a cruel trick played by this wicked place? Get out! A voice not her own thundered from the altar, echoing with authority. But the growl followed, swirling in the corners of her mind, pulling her toward the darkness. Just as she turned to flee, fingers of shadow snatched at her wrist. Cold and clammy, they gripped like iron. Sarah let out a shriek, panic erupting, and twisted her arm, throwing her weight against the terrible force. The hand released, but as she stumbled back, the altar reverberated beneath her feet, shaking the ground. What do you want? She gasped, tears spilling down her cheeks. She had not come for power or blood, only to find her child. The darkness rustled around her, pulsing like a breathing creature, and again she heard it, a gentle whisper, now clear as day. Stay, it beckoned, a wicked command. And just when the final roots of reality threatened to snap around her, pulling her into the depths below, she froze. A flicker in the shadows shifted, forming into a figure she recognized all too well. Emily stood there, luminous under the shroud of darkness, but her eyes glowed with a light that was anything but warm. Mommy, why did you come here? The question dripped with love but held an undertone of something sinister. Help me, please. Sarah cried, filled with dread. But then, the woods erupted, a cacophony of howling whispers. The shadows shuddered, and every twisted turn of bark began to shift, like a curtain being raised. What had she really unleashed in her search? Something was awakening in response to her scream, and the night closed in, leaving Sarah standing on the precipice of a dreadful revelation. The shadows swirled around her like smoke, thickening until she could barely breathe. Sarah's heart hammered in her chest, each pulse ringing with dread as she took a tentative step back. Emily's figure shifted, an almost ethereal beauty draped in darkness, but something foul simmered beneath her radiant facade. Mommy, don't be scared, her daughter said, yet each word felt laced with a biting chill, a false promise veiled in the horror surrounding them. Where are you? What is happening? Sarah's voice trembled as she wrestled with the chilling urge to reach out, to embrace her little girl. But the very air felt tainted, laden with malevolence. The altar trembled again, sending shockwaves through the ground. Sarah's instinct screamed at her. She had to escape. She had to save Emily or whatever this was wearing her form. With a sudden burst of defiance, she turned and bolted through the knee-high underbrush, the forest closing in around her. Twisting branches clawed at her skin, snagging at her clothes like desperate hands reaching for a lifeline that wasn't there. Mom! The scream echoed, not just in her ears, but through the very roots of the forest. Why are you leaving? Something deep inside froze her. That wasn't her Emily's voice. The laughter returned, mocking and cruel, pouring from the trees like a rotten stream. Every twisted pathway seemed alive with the intent to trap her further. She skidded to a stop, the thud of her heart drowning out the dissonant laughter. An inky figure flitted just out of her sight, darting behind gnarled trunks, and she nearly shouted out, "Show yourself." As if responding, an answer came, low and guttural. Stay, stay, stay. It pulsated beneath her skin, binding her in place, urging her to let go, to give in. No. Struggling against the weight of the shadows, Sarah forced her legs to move, but the earth felt treacherous beneath her feet. The altar loomed in the distance as though it had grown taller, its grotesque decorations glistening like a grotesque mockery of safety. Emily's whispers mingled with the growls, forming a terrible symphony that clawed through Sarah's resolve. "Mommy! Help me!" It penetrated her resolve and sank into the depths of her heart. Desperation fueled her feet, a wild heartbeat pushing her onward even when reason faltered. Ahead, she glimpsed a silver glimmer, the moon peeking through the foliage, a frail promise in the thick sinister darkness. She pushed harder, adrenaline tearing through her veins, sinking into the hope of escaping this nightmare. But the laughter escalated wildly, it wrapped around her, and she gasped as the avoidance turned into an inevitable collision. Rounding a particularly twisted tree, Sarah stumbled onto the altar once again. The serene vision of Emily was gone, replaced by an echo of shadows swirling, growing, morphing into something less recognizable. An outline shifted, a grotesque parody of a child. The eyes that once sparkled with innocence now glowed hungrily. "Why do you keep trying to leave?" it hissed, voice dripping with malice. "You're not really here to help her." "Stop!" Sarah screamed, but the shadows seemed to close tighter around her, drowning out her voice. The creature leaned closer, a breath of icy wind brushing against her face. "You're here for you, aren't you? Your heart, it beats for what you want." Sarah shook her head, fighting against the pull of the shadows, who now seemed to grasp at her mind, piercing her thoughts like daggers. "I just want Emily." "But what if she doesn't want you?" The ground shook, and Sarah lost her footing. The altar began to rise, shifting and swaying, roots and bones spilling forth, erupting from the earth. The laughter roared, drowning her thoughts, and the skeletal remains clattered together in a grotesque symphony of forgotten lives. The altar wasn't just a gathering of offerings. It was a portal, a gateway to truths buried in malevolence and despair. With her heart close to fracturing, Sarah let out a scream, "Emily, I won't leave you." But as the world twisted and darkened, she sensed a pull, a decision echoing in the corners of her mind. In that moment, all hope seemed slipping away unless she could face what lay beneath the surface. Would she choose to stay in the abyss and confront the darkness head-on, or flee and abandon everything she held dear? The air crackled with imminent dread, and she sensed the lingering question of the forest: would the truth set them free, or bind them forever? The altar trembled beneath Sarah's feet, an eerie rhythm that synced with her frantic heart. She staggered back, haunted by the grotesque echo of the creature that wore Emily's face. "You're here because you fear the truth, aren't you?" it sneered, vines of shadow writhing around its form. The ground, alive with whispers, implored her to listen, to surrender to the darkness wrapping around her. She could feel the weight of despair pressing against her chest, squeezing tighter with every sinister word. The laughter pulsed in her ears, weaving in and out like a malevolent chant, and she squeezed her eyes shut to block it out. Yet, even as shadows closed in, one shred of clarity pierced through, the flicker of genuine love buried deep within her heart. "No!" Sarah shouted, and the sound of her own defiance rang in the hollow night. "I refuse to be scared. I choose to fight." With newfound strength, she turned again toward the altar, feeling its evil energy surge against her. The skeletal figures rose to the surface, their mournful faces twisting as if begging for release. "You cannot help them, Sarah," the creature taunted again, the form flickering like a flame on the verge of extinguishing. "They are bound to this place, as you are." "You're lying." She yelled back, stepping closer, wanting to reclaim her child. "Emily is not dead. She is still here." In her mind, the image of her daughter twisted and warped, the original warmth disappearing under layers of darkness. But Emily's laughter, a memory of brightness, broke through, piercing the suffocating veil. "Mommy!" it echoed, pleading yet hopeful. The altar swelled, shadows spiraling upward, crafting a storm of chaos. Sarah stumbled, narrowly avoiding a gnarled root that surged like a snake, reaching for her. Each step she took felt like stepping onto a frozen lake, the ice creaking beneath her. "Help her, and you do nothing but lose yourself," the chilling voice hissed, taunting her with every step she took. Desperation clawed at her throat, choking her. What if this horror was true? Just as Sarah thought she might buckle beneath the horror, a memory flickered in her mind, a deep, comforting hug shared between her and Emily, a moment of pure love amidst chaos. "I love you, my sweet girl," she whispered to the darkness, feeling the ancient energy wavering in response. Suddenly, the altar morphed, revealing glimpses of the past, the warmth of their home, the laughter intertwined with mundane moments. She saw herself clutching Emily's small hand, their connection radiating like a beacon. Those memories felt real, brighter than the encroaching shadows, reminders that hope had surfaced amidst despair. "Emily!" she yelled, turning outward, letting the memories shatter the malevolence that hunted her. The shadows recoiled, seeming to falter with each loving remembrance that flowed through her. Stay with us," the air vibrated with whispers, but Sarah pushed back. "No. I will not be swallowed." Her spirit ignited, a combustion of courage surging through her veins. With every word she crafted from love, the darkness shrank back. Suddenly, sharp teeth of panic closed in as she felt the shadows begin to fray like cloth, the altar's hold wavering. In a swift movement, she lunged toward the now flickering apparition of her daughter. "I am your mother. I will always find you." Emily's face appeared briefly in the shadows, merging with the malevolent figure. "But you were never there," it taunted, a smirk creeping across its twisted features. "You turned away once." The ground quaked once more, desperate to reclaim her, and Sarah barely regained her footing. Fear clawed at her mind like long, bony fingers, but she forced her eyes open to find the truth in the chaos that surrounded her. The truth was there, a choice buried that straddled love and fear. The shadows began to convulse again, as if trying to reform in desperation. "Do I risk everything for Emily, or do I heed the fears that tell me to run?" Time stretched, and Sarah felt the world dissolve into a dangerous hush, awaiting her answer. Would she step into the darkness and confront her past for her daughter, or would the shadows consume them both? The decision loomed like a storm, waiting to break. The shadows convulsed, thickening like fog rolling in from the sea. Sarah's heart thundered against her ribs, the echo bleeding fear into her thoughts. She took a steadier breath, forcing calm into the chaos that threatened to swallow her whole. "Emily," she whispered, reaching out with trembling fingers. A murmur crawled through the air, slick and viscous, as if the darkness was alive with breath. "She is lost," the creature mocked, the words curling like smoke around her ears. "You cannot bring her back." It stirred, its form blurring, teasing her sanity with every movement. "Get away from her!" Sarah shouted, anger flaring amidst the despair. The ground recoiled, roots lashing out, tugging at her legs like anxious hands. With urgency fueling her, she wrenched herself free, stepping closer to the altar that now glimmered faintly, pulsing in time with her heartbeat. Suddenly, the altar erupted, revealing a swirling vortex at its center. Voices shrieked, distorted and echoing. "Mom, please," a small voice pleaded, blending with the cacophony. It froze her, crystallizing the moment in time. "Mommy, it hurts," Emily's voice quavered, slicing through the abominable chants. "Emily!" Sarah screamed, muscles tightening with dread as the shadows thickened around her legs like binding chains. Each word of her daughter's pained plea pierced through the mania, feeding the fire of her desperation. In a heartbeat, the memories stood taller, swaddled moments of bedtime stories, warm smiles, and playful giggles. It was a tether she could cling to. "I'm here. I will always find you." Her voice broke under the weight of anguish, but even so, it rang with determination. The creature shrieked, its form contorting as flames erupted from the altar, licking at the air with malicious hunger. "You cannot save her. You must choose your love or your life." "Both." Sarah's answer erupted from her lips, power surging through her frail body as she faced the abyss. I refuse to lose her again. She hurled herself toward the altar, feeling a primordial force pulling her in. The edges of reality blurred, a dizzying dance of dark and light, and she found herself kneeling at the lip of the void. When she peered within, the shadows rippled, revealing within them fleeting glimpses of Emily. Her daughter's image flickered, a ghost in a desolate world of unyielding darkness, and Sarah recoiled as the depth of sorrow settled into her bones. "Mommy, help me!" Emily's voice was a sigh, delicate yet dripping with urgency. The creature lunged, engulfing her in a shroud of darkness. "No!" Sarah gasped as the shadows surged, intent on consuming her. Just outside the edge of the otherworldly maw, something shimmered, a flicker of light between the shadows, as if hope refused to die. With every ounce of strength, she advanced. "Stay with me, my sweet girl," she called, praying the tether of her love was enough to cut through the chaos. A momentary calm washed over her, and then pain exploded through her chest as the creature expelled her. She fell backward, gasping for air, the world swirling once more around her. She felt the altar tremble beneath her again, this time with an ominous hum, the shadows coiling tighter. Just then, the whispers shifted, growing louder against the haunting echoes of Emily's voice, and a new presence surged from the altar. A warping of shadows took form, a silhouette resembling someone Sarah had lost long ago. "You don't deserve her," it lashed out, voice dripping with bitterness. Sarah's throat tightened as visions of past mistakes crashed around her, threatening to draw her under. "What do you want?" she cried, fingers clenched into fists as panic clawed at her skin. "It's already too late," Sarah, the voice dripped with malice. "The choice has been made." With dread grasping at her heart, Sarah sat frozen before the horror that loomed. Doubt threatened to overrun her resolve. What choice had she made? What cost would her love demand? As the shadows flickered maliciously, she braced herself for the truth that would tear her world apart. What would she sacrifice next to save? Emily. And as her heart raced, the altar trembled again, shadows whispering secrets of destiny that only the darkness could reveal. The shadows thickened as the presence loomed above Sarah, heavy and dark, suffocating and cold. A dread so profound gripped her heart that it felt like ice coursing through her veins. She was drowning in despair, and the weight of her memories threatened to crush her. "Too late for regrets, isn't it?" The silhouette taunted, its voice slicing through her resolve. It shifted, revealing a face she recognized, one haunted by sorrow that mirrored her own. Jake. Once a comforting figure, now a vessel of bitterness. His eyes reflected loss and anger, and every word that dripped from his lips was like poison. "Please," she begged, choking on her fear. "Help me save her, not destroy me." "Save?" Jake scoffed, a cruel smile twisting his features. "You think you can save anyone? You let me go. You let Emily suffer. And now you're here, waiting in the darkness you created. How poetic." Sarah stumbled backwards, the altar vibrating ominously. Each pulse tugged at her, thickening the shadows wrapping around her ankles. She wanted to scream, to lash out, but panic turned her voice to a whisper. I never wanted that." The laughter that erupted was hollow, echoing through the mire. "But your choices have consequences, Sarah. You thought love would shield you. Love, my dear, is a weapon, and you wield it poorly." As the words struck her, Sarah felt them sink into her skin, corrupting the good intentions that once fueled her actions. She'd chosen to protect Emily often, but at what cost? The guilt was a specter hanging over her, tangible and pressing like chains around her neck. "Let her go," Sarah shouted into the churning void. "I'll take whatever you want in her place. I'll carry the burdens you offer, just let my daughter free." The laughter faded, replaced by a deep rumble that vibrated beneath her. Lights flickered within the shadows, shapes dancing as if some dreadful spectacle were about to unfold. "You think I will let her go?" Jake said, his voice rising above the chaos. "Love? You confuse it with sacrifice. But you don't have the resolve to pay the price. A flash of vulnerability crossed his face, and for an instant, Sarah saw the man who loved her, the one who had embraced her with tenderness in another life. It broke her heart and gave her a flicker of resolve. This isn't the end of me, or her. I will find a way, whatever it takes. The shadow settled deeper into the ground, shaking and swirling in rage. A deafening roar filled the air, pushing against her chest like a tidal wave. You're already lost, Sarah. The choice between her and your life has been made. The darkness feeds on your despair. From the depths of the void, Emily's voice cried out once more, fragile yet full of yearning. Mommy, please. Those words struck like lightning through Sarah's heart, igniting a fire of determination. I will never stop fighting for you. She screamed, her voice rising above the noise. With a sudden burst of clarity, time felt suspended as she charged toward the altar again, desperate to grasp the shimmer of light amidst the shadows. No more. She declared, fear and love colliding in her chest. As she reached for that flickering hope, the ground trembled violently. Shadows churned, grasping at her, yelling her name. Your flesh, your soul, you won't escape what you owe. A flash of light engulfed her as the altar erupted, sending waves of energy crashing through the air, swirling around her like a whirlwind. Unmoored and disoriented, she felt herself being pulled in every direction, a chaotic dance between hope and despair. And then she saw it, a figure trapped just beyond the reach of the chaos. Emily. Her daughter's anguished face twisted in a silent scream, eyes wide with terror. Sarah's heart shattered as the world around her began to splinter. In that moment of choice, as darkness clawed viciously at her, she understood the twisted truth: sacrifice was only the beginning. The true horror lay in what she still had to lose. A scream erupted through the void, not just of fear but a war cry of love, determination burning bright against the consuming dark. What awaited them in that tangled mess of shadows and light? And as sorrow intertwined with fury, the choice loomed like a black cloud. What line would she cross to reclaim her daughter? The world around Sarah blurred, light and dark colliding like a war of titans. Her mind raced, pulses of energy crackling against her skin as she reached for Emily. The altar surged, a living thing, hungry and twisted, as if responding to her intent. Shadows writhed, rebelling against her movement, a dark sea yearning to pull her under. Mommy. Emily's voice, frail yet fierce, pierced the chaos, a siren call that surged through Sarah's veins. Each syllable birthed a new resolve, igniting a fierce rage within her. The fear enveloping her could no longer hold her back. Hold on, baby. I'm coming. She shouted, desperation lending power to her voice. But just as quickly as her determination surged, a chilling wind swept through the darkness, wrapping icy tendrils around her body. The laughter returned, sharp and mocking, reverberating like a cracked bell. Foolish woman. You think this is a game? The price of love isn't merely your desperation. It takes more than that. As the air thickened, shadows twisted shapes before her eyes, forming dark figures from her past, haunting memories clawing their way to the surface. Each figure wore the face of those she had lost, those she had abandoned. The specter of guilt wrapped around her neck like a noose. You think you're strong enough to save her? Jake's voice echoed, blending with the disembodied whispers that filled her ears. Show us your sacrifice, Sarah. Show us what you're willing to give up. The horror loomed closer, and every inch felt like stepping deeper into a pit. The altar's energy whirled around her like a cyclone, chaotic and unforgiving. She grasped at her heart, the weight of agony pressing down fiercely. And then, an unexpected calm washed over her. In the swirling fear, she unwrapped herself from the guilt, like shedding a skin that had become too tight. She could not change the past, but she could forge ahead. I choose my daughter. Whatever you take, do it. With that declaration, tendrils of darkness shrieked, instantly coiling around her, dragging her closer to the altar's heart. The faint light flickered, close yet impossibly far. The horrifying sensation of being pulled apart swarmed over her, as if she was a marionette with its strings cut. A figure from the depths of the shadows rose, tall and looming, a silhouette cloaked in malice. It took shape and emerged, unveiling a face similar to hers but twisted into a grin that dripped with malevolence. "Welcome," it hissed, teeth glistening like daggers. "You've chosen. Now bear witness." In that moment, darkness roared, a monstrous wave threatening to consume her. As she braced herself against the overwhelming tide, she felt something shift. Her love for Emily resonated, pulling the very light of the altar toward her. "Mommy, don't leave me." Emily's voice broke through the noise, raw and heart-wrenching. Sarah's heart surged, a shield of love fierce against the impending doom. "I'm right here," she yelled, pushing against the void. But the shadows roared back, drowning her force with despair, clawing deeper and deeper. Her vision began to fragment and darken as the shadows pulled at her soul, scrabbling for the essence they craved. What was it that could possibly withstand the darkness? Just as hope began to flicker like a dying ember, she caught a glimmer at the edge of her awareness, a faint light floating above the altar, pulsing rhythmically like a heartbeat. Perhaps it was the true key. But as she grasped for it, the malevolent figure lunged forward, eyes gleaming with anticipation. Sarah felt a chokehold around her dreams, uncertain of whether she could reach it before the shadows reclaimed her entirely. Fear and love swirled within, battling for dominance. And with each heartbeat, the altar throbbed ominously. What choices lay ahead? What consequences waited in the silence as she stood on the precipice of despair and hope? Would she be strong enough to shatter the darkness and find her daughter? As Sarah's grasp on reality thinned, a chilling thought struck her. In this fight for Emily, would she become the very monster she feared? The wind howled through the trees, slashing at Sarah's resolve as she faced the creature that wore her daughter's face. Darkness loomed around her, cloaking the forest in despair, but amid the chaos surged a wave of unwavering love. "I'll find you, Emily," she shouted, her heart thunderous in her chest. Every shadow felt alive, whispering accusations and doubts into her ears. "It's your fault. You weren't there." The echoes of past mistakes punched at her gut, trying to unravel her spirit. But she could not surrender. "Mommy, don't leave me." Each pleading cry pierced through the fog of despair, reminding her of every laugh they shared, every hug in moments of warmth. "I refuse to let you go," she roared, grounding herself in the memories that wove their love together. The altar trembled again, a monstrous heartbeat pulsating in rhythm with her own. Time slowed as Sarah's heart raced, light danced at the perimeter of her vision, a flickering thread of hope against the all-consuming black. "Embrace the fear, Sarah. You are bound to this darkness," the figure growled, its grin only deepening, jagged teeth shining like knives. "Watch as you lose everything. I won tea." It came out as a defiant roar, and she steeled herself against the encroaching shadows, taking a step forward. Tendrils grasped at her ankles, pulling her toward the churning abyss of despair. But with a surge of desperation, she pushed forward harder, deeper. "For Emily. For love." Her voice rang out, pure and adamant, cutting through the din of mockery. The shadows recoiled briefly, and in that instant, the altar bubbled, its grotesque designs twisting with every heartbeat. With a roar that resembled both rage and triumph, Sarah lunged toward the shimmer of light. "Mom, please." Emily's voice soared, an anchor in swirling turmoil. "Don't give in." It was those simple words that reminded her of the strength they'd built together. Every time she had lifted Emily up after a scare, every time they had faced challenges as a team, resonated inside her. As she reached the edge of the altar, the world around her erupted in blinding light, consuming her senses. "Let me save you," she cried, her body trembling against the force pulling her. What came next felt surreal. A cascade of visions flooded her mind. The small moments washed up like waves, Emily's sleepy face in the morning, pancake breakfasts shared before school, nights spent under starlit skies as they counted constellations. "Our love is stronger," Sarah shouted, tears streaming as she clung to those radiant memories. In a snap, the light dove into her, reversing the shadows that had once tangled her spirit. With a brilliant flash, all doubt began to evaporate, and the pull of darkness slackened. No! The creature shrieked, writhing, its form distorting. There is always room for love. Sarah yelled back, feeling a surge of power pour from her very core. She tore through the shadowy facade, pushing through every whisper that sought to entrap her, yearning for Emily's safety like a flame seeking oxygen. I won't stop until I have you. She roared as the shadows shrieked and reared back, their grip slackening. She lunged forward, arms outstretched. And then she saw Emily trapped, but illuminated as if radiating warmth amid the cold grasp of the darkness. Mommy! The moment of contact was electric. Sarah enveloped her daughter in her arms, holding tight. The surge of warmth spread between them, tearing through the darkness like dawn dispels night. The shadows screamed as the light expanded, washing over everything that had sought to trap her. Bones shattered, screams reverberated, and in one final rush, the altar erupted with a blinding storm of energy, shattering the dark cage that had held both mother and daughter captive. As the waves of light consumed the shadows, Sarah heard the final echoes of despair dissipate into nothingness. And then silence fell. For a moment, everything was still. The forest stood transformed, sunlight pouring through finally without the haze of darkness. The familiar hum of life began again, and the once sinister woods felt welcoming and warm. Mommy? Are you okay? Emily whispered, taking Sarah's hands in hers, her eyes wide with innocence and love, pulling her into a world untouched by horror. I'm here, Sarah wept, embracing her daughter tight. I'll always be here. Together, they stepped back into the radiant light of the day, the giggles replaced with heartfelt laughter as they walked away from the haunted depths of the woods. The bond now felt unbreakable, fortified by their battle against the darkness. But Sarah knew the truth, love always endured. As they walked through the sun-dappled path amidst the trees, she cast a glance over her shoulder. In the distance, the remnants of the haunting shadows faded, only a whisper of a memory, a lesson written deep in her heart: never underestimate the darkness, for the light that love casts can push it away. And in that tranquil moment, they knew, they had both been saved. Now, if you've enjoyed this heart-pounding story and want to join us for more thrilling tales, you need to subscribe now. Don't wait even one more second, hit that subscription button and click the bell to be notified of every new story. And smash the like button to feed the algorithm. Let's make sure these tales reach everyone who needs to hear them. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. Your thoughts matter, and I can't wait to see what you all think. And please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. Show your love and support for this channel, because true fans understand the importance of each action. Thank you for being part of this wild adventure.